Chosen one, you did not arrive here by chance, and this instant is not something you accidentally wandered into. This intersection was arranged with exactness because divine timing outweighs speed and alignment outweighs effort. Anointed one, a movement has already begun long before today, yet today it meets you. There is a narrowing happening in the unseen, a quiet shutting down of distractions, and with it comes a sharp clarity, as if a doorway stands open for only a brief window. Scripture speaks of an appointed time that speaks and does not deceive, and though it may seem delayed, it arrives exactly as written in Book of Habakkuk 2:3. You are standing at that edge now, the place where waiting becomes transfer, where pressure shifts into provision, where heaven answers what you carried in silence. Chosen one, this is not merely about supply, it is about acknowledgement. Someone saw what others missed, and heaven leaned toward that awareness. What feels urgent is not anxiety, it is alignment. What feels heavy is not a burden, it is nearness. Anointed one, true elevation never announces itself with noise. It comes quietly, with awareness, with stillness, with the deep sense that something irreversible has already said yes to you. Wealth can move, favor can turn. A life can pivot in a single breath when heaven determines the moment is ripe. Chosen one, divine reminders do not always arrive through loud explanations. Sometimes what steadies the soul is something gentle, faithful, and consistent. What has been prepared waits without pressure. The pull you sense is not imagination. It is recognition. It is that rare moment when something eternal touches something buried deep within you, and both instantly know each other. I have lived through moments like this, times when nothing outward shifted, yet everything inside became still. No evidence, no guarantees, only a quiet certainty that something unseen had drawn closer. That is what is happening now. Heaven does not hurry, but when it moves precisely. Someone did not come across you accidentally. Your name was not entered by mistake. Thought was given. Attention was intentional. A decision was formed. Anointed one, there are seasons when God hides movement inside ordinary days, late nights where silence weighs more than sound, mornings where routine masks an unseen load. I know that weight. I have carried it while smiling, while standing close to giving up altogether. Yet those private moments are where heaven looks most closely, not when we appear strong publicly, but when we quietly continue. Chosen one, this is why timing matters right now. Step away too quickly and the thread loosens, not as punishment, but because alignment requires presence. I once walked away from something that seemed too quiet to matter, only to realize later it was the very door I had prayed for. Heaven rarely shouts. Shouting draws the wrong attention. Instead, it waits for stillness, and the stillness you feel is not emptiness. It is space being prepared. Anointed one, money, is not the message here. It is the indicator. When provision shifts suddenly, it reveals that something deeper has already moved beneath the surface. I have watched people receive dramatic financial breakthroughs and remain exactly the same inside. I have also seen someone experience a small, precisely timed intervention that quietly redirected their entire future. The difference was never the size of the gift. It was readiness. What is approaching you is responding to who you have become, not to what you demanded. Balance is adjusting. What was uneven is being corrected, and it is happening without spectacle. Chosen one, pause and ask yourself why you remained this long when many would have scrolled past. That answer matters. It reveals discernment. It reveals hunger that is steady, not desperate. Heaven entrusts movement to those who can sit inside uncertainty without turning bitter. That capacity is not common. It is formed through endurance. When Scripture speaks of an appointed time that speaks and does not lie, it is describing moments like this, where delay was not denial, but preparation. Anointed one, someone observed the way you give without applause, the way you carry weight others avoid, the way you continued showing up even after whispering to yourself that you were finished. I have stood in that exact space, telling myself I had nothing left, only to discover that staying one more moment altered everything. That is why this carries gravity. It is not excitement. It is acknowledgement. A quiet influence guided a hand. A decision was shaped carefully. Something was released only once you were steady enough to receive it without losing yourself. Chosen one, this is not about being selected above others. It is about being trusted with timing. Heaven does not place weight on unstable ground. You are still standing because you learned how to hold pressure without collapsing. That resilience may feel ordinary to you, but it has been noticed. What is unfolding now responds to that quiet strength. The sleepless nights, the mornings you rose anyway, the restraint you practiced when reaction would have been easier. Anointed one, understand this clearly. What is opening does not require chasing, it requires presence. When striving stops, paths begin to appear where walls once stood. I have witnessed this pattern repeatedly. The moment I loosened my grip, clarity settled. The moment I trusted, the quiet direction followed. This is how alignment works. Not through force, but through agreement. Chosen one, remain with what you are sensing. This is the turning point. Not loud, not dramatic, but decisive. Something has already been activated, and it is moving intentionally. The shift is not somewhere ahead of you, it is already beneath your feet. Chosen one, what is unfolding right now does not ask for strain, but it does ask for honesty. There is a difference. Strain exhausts the spirit. Honesty steadies it. I learned this during a season when I tried to manufacture outcomes through sheer willpower, only to realize I was draining myself while missing the gentler guidance already present. What you are sensing is not pressure to perform. It is an invitation to acknowledge what has already been recognized about you. Someone paid attention beyond surface impressions. They noticed the pauses in your decisions, the discipline in your restraint, the times you chose peace over reaction even when reaction would have been justified. Chosen one, many misunderstand how divine movement works. They assume that if heaven is involved, everything must feel dramatic. Yet the most significant shifts often arrive quietly, almost hidden inside ordinary exchanges. I remember once nearly dismissing a simple conversation as coincidence, only to realize later it had been the hinge that redirected everything. That is why presence matters, not because you are proving faith, but because awareness keeps the door open long enough for alignment to settle fully. Anointed one, what is happening did not start with finances. It started with observation. Someone saw how you handled disappointment without becoming harsh, how you endured loss without losing integrity, how you continued giving when it would have been easier to withdraw. Heaven studies patterns, not isolated moments, and when patterns reveal integrity under pressure, provision becomes safe. Resources can move without corrupting the one who receives them. Chosen one, I have seen individuals collapse under sudden increase because they were still trying to heal old wounds through external gain. That is not your story. The steadiness you feel now, instead of chaos, reveals that much of your internal work is already complete. You learned how to sit with discomfort. You learned how to wait without numbing yourself. You learned how to remain upright when no one was watching. Anointed One, when Scripture speaks of faithfulness in small things, it is honoring consistency. Those quiet choices where you protected your integrity even when opportunity tempted you otherwise. I once declined something that would have solved a problem instantly, but left a residue I could not carry. It delayed relief, but when provision finally arrived, it came clean. Clean alignment produces clean movement. Chosen One, this is why leaving prematurely interrupts placement. Timing is not about reward or punishment. It is about positioning. When you remain present, you remain placed. What is approaching you requires awareness more than action. Awareness signals agreement. Agreement allows momentum to complete its course. That delicate feeling you sense is precision at work, not fragility, but careful orchestration. Anointed One, understand this as well. The person who acted was not operating alone. Influence does not always look mystical from the outside. Sometimes it feels like a persistent thought that refuses to fade. A quiet nudge that keeps returning. A sense of fairness that insists on response. I have experienced both sides of that exchange. There were moments I felt compelled to help someone without fully knowing why, only to later see how perfectly timed it had been. That is how heaven works through ordinary hand. Chosen One, you are standing where past endurance meets present movement. That is why certain memories rise now, not to reopen pain, but to show you the contrast. You can sense the difference between who you were when you carried those earlier burdens and who you are now. That difference is evidence. When your soul becomes still like this, it is because something recognizes safety. Safety creates space for growth. Growth makes room for increase. Anointed One, hear this clearly. The signal you received was not meant to repair everything at once. It was meant to confirm something. Confirmation shifts posture. And when posture shifts, pathways realign. I have witnessed entire seasons change because one small confirmation restored someone's willingness to trust again. Often that is all heaven requires. A quiet yes, a decision to remain, a refusal to shut down or rush ahead. Chosen One, this is not the summit. It is the pivot. What follows depends less on effort and more on steadiness. Let your breathing slow. Let your focus remain grounded. The movement unfolding now is intelligent. It knows its destination. It knows its timing. It responds to those who can hold presence without panic. Stay here. The alignment is still settling, and something important is being prepared within you to carry what comes next. Anointed One, what you are feeling is the aftershock of recognition, not excitement, not fear. A grounded awareness that something has already shifted. I remember sitting in that same space once, realizing the thing I had waited years for did not arrive with spectacle. It arrived with clarity, kinder than I imagined, yet stronger than anything I could have forced. That is how authentic change announces itself. It does not beg for attention. It commands respect through calm certainty. Chosen One, the provision moving toward you is not the destination. It is the signal that the destination has already accepted you. Many pursue outcomes without becoming the person capable of sustaining them. You did the opposite. You became steady first. You learned discernment first. You practiced restraint first. That is why movement meets you at your current capacity rather than overwhelming you. Chosen One, there is a reason this unfolded when your pace slowed, but you refused to stop. Heaven does not intervene in recklessness, and it does not accelerate when we are paralyzed. It moves when we are still walking, perhaps tired, perhaps uncertain, but still facing forward. I have seen this pattern repeat throughout my life. Assistance often arrives the moment after we quietly decide not to quit, even when quitting would have seemed reasonable to everyone else. Anointed One, someone observed how you carried responsibility without applause, how you remained gracious when resentment would have been understandable, how you did not broadcast your sacrifices for validation. That kind of strength does not attract pity. It attracts alignment. When balance begins correcting itself, it does so without spectacle. Doors that once felt sealed begin to loosen. Circumstances that seemed immovable begin to shift. Chosen One, many misunderstand blessing. They assume it is a reward for effort. In truth, it supports direction. What is being supported in you is not ambition, but trajectory. You are moving towards something that requires stability more than urgency. That is why silence has shaped so much of your journey. Silence refines discernment. Silence trains you to distinguish movement from noise. Silence prepares you to recognize authentic alignment when it appears. Anointed One, speaking from experience, the most transformative moments of my life came when I stopped trying to decode every detail and simply remained present. When I resisted overthinking, clarity settled naturally. When I stopped chasing explanations, understanding arrived quietly. This is one of those moments. The less you force, the more alignment unfolds. The less you rush, the more clearly direction reveals itself. Chosen One, the signal you received was measured carefully. If it had been smaller, you might have ignored it. If it had been larger, it might have shaken your foundation. It was calibrated precisely to meet who you are now. That precision is how you know it was guided. Random events do not calibrate. Wisdom does. Anointed One, notice how your body responded, not with panic, not with greed, but with stillness. That response reveals readiness. It shows that what is approaching will not control you. You will steward it. There is a profound difference between seeking validation and seeking alignment. Validation demands attention. Alignment requires presence. You are seeking alignment. Chosen One, this moment marks a pivot that does not easily reverse, not because life suddenly becomes simple, but because clarity alters how you move. When clarity arrives, old doubts lose their authority. Old fears release their grip. Paths begin appearing one step at a time, exactly when needed. Anointed One, there is more ahead than you can currently define, and that is intentional. If every detail were visible now, you might try to control what is meant to unfold naturally. Instead, you are being invited to remain grounded, to allow the movement already set in motion to complete its course. I have learned that divine processes do not require supervision. They require cooperation. Chosen One, stay inside this stillness. Let it shape you. What you are standing in is not coincidence, and it is not temporary. It is the beginning of a stretch where alignment accelerates, not because you push harder, but because resistance has quietly been removed. There. I. Pi. There's a kind of exhaustion that does not come from overworking, but from carrying something meaningful for a long time without visible progress. It settles deep. You continue showing up, you fulfill responsibilities, yet the intensity of earlier enthusiasm softens into endurance. I know that season well. It is where passion matures into perseverance. Anointed One, that season was not failure, it was formation. The waiting you endured was not empty space. It was training. You learned how to return to center after disappointment, how to return after silence, how to return after hoping quietly and seeing nothing change outwardly. Some days you did not feel inspired or powerful. You simply chose not to abandon yourself. That decision carries more weight than emotional highs ever could. Heaven measures consistency differently than emotion. Chosen One, when a promise stretches across time, something subtle happens. You stop leaning on excitement and begin leaning on memory. You remember who sustained you before. You remember the nights you thought you would not endure, and yet did. I remember standing late at night, exhausted, questioning whether anything would shift. No miracle happened in that moment, but something solid formed inside me. That solidity is what allows blessing to arrive without crushing you. Anointed One, endurance is rarely celebrated publicly, yet it is always rewarded privately. With trust. Trust is why movement can now be placed in your hands. You learned to continue without applause. You learned to wait without numbing your spirit. You learned to return to what steadied you when emotions fluctuated. That kind of faith does not fracture under delay. It deepens. Chosen One, those ordinary mornings when you showed up anyway, those were not wasted days. Roots were growing beneath the surface. Shallow growth collapses under sudden increase. You were spare. That instability, this stillness you sense now, is different. It is not stagnation. It is completion beneath the surface. Trust has replaced panic. Chosen One, I want to speak gently into the weariness you may not voice out loud, the fatigue that comes from being steady for so long, from holding space for others while quietly managing your own battles, from remaining upright when it would have been easier to withdraw and let everything pass you by. That weariness has been seen not as weakness, but as proof of responsibility carried with integrity. Anointed One, faith at this stage is no longer loud or dramatic. It does not demand constant signs. It remembers, it returns, it repeats what is true, even when circumstances do not echo it back. I discovered in my own journey that faith became strongest when I stopped chasing explanations and kept returning to the same quiet anchor that had carried me before. What matters now is not intensity, it is posture. The promise does not require you to feel powerful every day. It asks you to remain aligned. Alignment is maintained through return to stillness, return to discerning that what is unfolding does not need your anxiety to accelerate it. Anointed One, daily faith often looks ordinary. It looks like choosing honesty when performance would be easier. It looks like resting when your body signals fatigue instead of forcing productivity. It looks like waiting for clarity instead of manufacturing movement. I have learned that forcing almost always complicates what patience allows to arrive cleanly. Chosen One, you are no longer in the phase where effort impresses heaven. You are in the phase where steadiness protects what is approaching. The promise did not overlook you during the waiting. It was learning how to meet you without dismantling the life you built through endurance. You not being extracted from your life, you are being met within it. Anointed One, there will be days ahead that feel ordinary again. Do not mistake ordinary for absence. Some of the most profound shifts happen while the outside appears unchanged. Continue returning, continue remaining present, without demanding proof. This is how you stay positioned without exhausting yourself. Chosen one, the season of waiting taught you how to carry yourself. Now you carry that posture forward, not rushing, not retreating, simply standing in quiet agreement with what has already begun. This stage does not require more effort. It requires less resistance, and that is something you have already learned how to offer. There comes a point when movement begins to feel inevitable rather than hoped for, not because every detail is visible, but because opposition has thinned. You are standing in that space now. Chosen one, as resistance thins, you begin noticing that what once drained you no longer demands the same energy. Obstacles that previously required constant effort to navigate simply stop standing in your way, not dramatically removed, just no longer positioned against you. That is often how alignment reveals itself. The struggle loses interest in competing with your direction. Anointed one, pay attention to what no longer fits. Old reactions that once felt necessary for survival begin to loosen. Old fears that shaped your decisions start fading into the background. This is not because you forced them away, but because you no longer require them. When purpose draws closer, protective patterns quietly retire. You may notice conversations feel lighter. Certain opportunities no longer tug at you. Some desires grow quiet. That is not loss. It is refinement. I have walked through seasons where I grieved what I thought I wanted, only to later recognize that its absence created space for something far more fitting. Clarity reduces distraction without struggle. Anointed one, fairness often corrects itself through repositioning rather than confrontation. You are being shifted away from environments that cannot sustain what you are about to carry. Protection sometimes appears as redirection. When certain doors refuse to open, it is not rejection. It is preservation. What is approaching requires stable ground. Chosen one, internally you are changing as well. You feel less compelled to defend yourself, less urgent to prove your worth. That calm confidence is not pride, it is peace settling deeply into place. Peace is what allows increase to serve rather than overwhelm. I want to share something I learned the hard way. The most delicate moment in any transition is when impatience disguises itself as motivation. When you feel momentum building, resist the urge to push it forward. Let it mature fully. Stepping ahead of timing once cost me unnecessary struggle. Presence is stronger than pressure. Anointed one, your awareness has sharpened. You sense when to speak and when to remain silent. That sensitivity is preparation. Those who carry responsibility must notice small imbalances before they become major consequences. Stewardship begins long before anything visible arrives. The signal that initiated this shift has not faded, it has integrated. When something integrates, it becomes part of how you move rather than something you chase. Silence allows precision. You are being positioned carefully. What meets you will do so without confusion, without fragmentation, without chaos. That kind of clean arrival is a gift. Stay aware, but not anxious. Stay open, but not restless. Alignment is intelligent. It is adjusting around you even now. Chosen one, as alignment continues refining itself, truth becomes easier to recognize. Not because it grows louder, but because there is less interference competing with it. Decisions feel simpler, even when circumstances remain layered. That simplicity is not naivete, it is clarity settling into place. I remember reaching a point where I no longer needed to debate every step internally. Something within me had stabilized enough to recognize direction without tension. That is what is forming in you now. Anointed One, this is where trust deepens beyond belief. Belief hopes, trust rests. Trust does not demand a complete map. It only trusts that the next step will appear when necessary. You have practiced this more than you realize. Every time you continued forward without full understanding, trust strengthened quietly. Chosen One, resist the temptation to measure your progress against old expectations. Comparison distorts perspective. The path rarely looks identical to the image we held at the beginning. What mattered was not perfect prediction, but consistent willingness to keep moving when the picture changed. You did that, Anointed One. What is approaching requires adaptability more than certainty. Fixed expectations fracture under new realities. Flexible trust bends without breaking. You learned how to adjust without losing your center. That flexibility is part of your readiness. Notice how your identity feels quieter now. You are less defined by titles, outcomes, or struggle. You are more grounded in presence itself. That is stability. When identity is anchored internally, external shifts no longer threaten it. Humility protects you here, not shrinking humility, but listening humility. You remain teachable even as clarity increases. That posture keeps guidance flowing. Chosen One, preparation matters more than anticipation at this stage. Preparation does not mean obsessively planning details. It means continuing to choose integrity. It means honoring. Dressed when your body calls for it. I have learned that rest is often the final expression of trust before breakthrough arrives. Excitement may try to rush you forward. Let it pass without allowing it to lead. What is coming does not require management. It requires centeredness. You are learning how to hold without grasping. Fear clenches the hands. Trust leaves them open. What is being placed into your life will function best in open hands. Stay grounded. Stay honest. Stay present. What is about to meet you will not ask you to become someone new. It will meet who you already are. Chosen One, there comes a moment when preparation completes and recognition begins, not from others, but from life itself. Circumstances begin responding differently. What once resisted now flows. What once delayed now aligns. I have experienced the moment when effort was no longer needed, when doors opened with fewer words, timing adjusted without explanation. That is activation. Anointed One, activation does not announce itself loudly. It arrives as calm confidence replacing hesitation. It feels like knowing when to move and when to wait without second-guessing. This is not intuition by chance. It is discernment stepping into authority. Authority assumes position. It does not demand attention. You are stepping into that now. There may still be uncertainty around details, but your direction no longer feels fragile. You are no longer guessing. You are cooperating. Steadiness has protected you from overanalyzing what is already settled. What is meant to meet you will arrive at the right depth, not just the right time. Suss in this clearly. When provision aligns with purpose, it carries both responsibility and relief. You are not being elevated to escape your life. You are being elevated to steward it differently. Stewardship requires clarity, restraint, and humility. You have practiced these in obscurity, which is why you can now hold visibility without losing your center. Notice how you are less inclined to announce or seek validation. This silence is not secrecy, it is containment. Some things must be carried quietly until fully formed. Your instinct to protect what is developing is wisdom. Energy around you is changing, not dramatically, but perceptibly. Interactions feel lighter. Decisions feel cleaner. Internal resistance diminishes. Challenges do not disappear. They no longer define you. They become information, not threats, that marks readiness for sustained movement rather than temporary breakthrough. Gratitude deepens effortlessly, not forced thankfulness, but recognition that you were carried through seasons that could have hardened you. Endurance shaped you more than ease ever could. Grounded gratitude prepares you to receive without arrogance or fear. Remain present. Avoid labeling or rushing what is unfolding. Presence keeps you receptive, responsive, and allows alignment to complete its work without interruption. What has been prepared meets you now, not as a surprise, but as a continuation of who you have become. This is not an ending. It is a beginning that simply begins. Chosen one, the transfer you sensed was already in motion long before it appeared. You are in your appointed moment. You are precisely where you were meant to stand. Receive this as confirmation. What belongs to you is finding you. Remain faithful, remain aligned, remain open. Blessing is already moving. You are carried within it.